Don't shoot yourself and die. Haters are softer than pumpkin pie. Out of my body ain't even alive. I find all the phonies and sever the ties. I spit that raw real, but man, this feel good too.
I love this world. The land, the trees, the lakes, the mountains, all so rich and pure. It put me at ease, but unfortunately, there was always one thing that hindered me from truly enjoying it. The people. Billions of people chopping the trees down, throwing their trash in the lakes, and replacing the land with their air-polluting cities. When I was younger, I would stare out the window and I would think to myself, this is my world. It felt like it was all made for me, and that all these entitled businessmen, lawmakers, and presidents had to ruin it. It would make me so angry that sometimes I'd clench my fists while in public. I wanted to punch the faces of everyone around me for bringing all this bullshit into my world. It wasn't fair. But of course, nobody understood how I felt. I was ostracized for feeling this way, punished for feeling this way, and mocked for feeling this way. I never had a single friend in my life. I remember in 4th grade, I was yelled at by the teacher to get out of her classroom. I can't remember what it was I did to piss her off, but that wasn't important to me. What was important to me was the fact that she said her classroom, but in actuality, it was her classroom on my land, so I stood up from my desk and shouted, "It's your classroom on my land because this is my world." The entire class laughed, and the teacher gave me an angry look. I stormed out of the classroom. That wasn't the only thing though. I got into fistfights, shouting matches, and much more. My parents sent me from therapist to therapist, all of which were trying to change the way I thought about this world. I was constantly labeled as a sociopath, and I was alienated socially. I was so pissed off. I just wished every other human would just drop dead so I could live peacefully. However, there was one thing the other people made that I can say I was somewhat thankful for. Video games. I remember it was the year 1987, on the day of my 7th birthday. I had received a Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short. I enjoyed playing the games on that system, so I got the SNES when it came out in 1990, and then the Nintendo 64 in 1996, and so on. It was with these systems that I realized what I wanted to do for the remainder of my life: create video games. I could create a video game and finally get the respect that I deserved. No teachers telling me what I can and can't do in my world, and no doctors labeling me as a sociopath. As I grew older, I learned what the development of a video game would require. Lots of coding, lots of designing, good gameplay, a decent plot, and among other things. My first concept for a game was called Reclamation. The plot revolved around a king who had to reclaim his kingdom from the citizens who've taken over it against his wishes. He'd have to traverse through the land, fighting the citizens and punishing them for their crimes, kind of like Super Mario Bros. I started to practice coding in 1997. I mainly worked with C++, and I got better and better until I was able to create a very rough prototype of Reclamation. I never was able to go past that one prototype though, as I wasn't good at creating art for the game, and I wasn't able to find anybody willing to help me. Since I couldn't finish the game by myself, I decided that instead of trying to finish the game alone, I would work for a company that makes games instead. So in the fall of 2003, 5 years after I finished high school, I officially started my first year of college at the DigiPen Institute of Technology at Redmond, Washington. That was where I pursued a bachelor's and a master's degree in programming and computer science. Anyways, I had always been a grade A student. School had always been easy for me, and it became the same case with college. It resulted in me in having a lot of free time. Meanwhile, for what I've seen, other people would hang out with their friends or focus on hobbies in their free time. Honestly, it's such a waste of time. I preferred to spend my free time studying. I'd study a lot about the subjects I saw in my classes. I saw a lot of subjects, apart from the usual coding and development courses. I also studied science, math, etc. In one of my science courses, we were learning about electricity, and they used to assign a ton of homework. One day I was in my dorm room doing some of that homework about advanced electricity uses. Then I got a little stuck at one of the questions, so I got on my computer to try to figure out the answer. Then, while I was browsing the web, I stumbled across something that caught my eye. It was a procedure called electroshock therapy, or ECT for short. The procedure was used on people who had mental health conditions. In short, it was used on people who didn't require such harsh procedures. It worked by running electric currents directly into the brain. When it was used by people who experienced it and well-trained, it could change lives for the better. But if it was misused, it had some severe backlashes. Misuse of ECT could lead to big amounts of pain for the patient. Another significant issue was memory loss. And in most cases, memory loss was not permanent. For some, however, the lost memories were never returned. I don't know why, but for some reason I was fascinated by this electroshock therapy procedure. The use of electricity to treat patients seemed really interesting to me. Some years had passed, and closer to the end of a semester, one of my computer science teachers mentioned that local internships were opening up. Internships in game development, software development, etc. After class, my teacher called me in, and he recommended me to apply for an internship at Nintendo because their offices were near the university. He told me that he could give me a letter of recommendation since I was one of the best students in the class. After some heavy consideration between Nintendo and other choices, I remembered all the good times I had with Nintendo products when I was younger, and it inspired me to choose to apply at Nintendo. I knew that Nintendo was working on the Revolution console, the one that was going to be renamed to Nintendo Wii later that year. I submitted my application a couple of days before the deadline and waited. Some weeks after that, I got a call for an interview. I tried my best to seem like a good person in the interview. Luckily for me, at the end of the interview, I was given the job right on the spot. I was surprisingly very happy that I got the internship. I was going to work for the company that created my childhood, the company that helped me see that humanity was maybe not as bad as I thought it was. I finally started my first day at summer internship at Nintendo on May 26, 2006, some weeks away from when the official name for the console was revealed, titled as the Nintendo Wii. The campus was divided into many departments: game development, OS, hardware, etc. I wanted to work on game development, but I was assigned to the software development department, which was a crew that was working on the main OS of the Wii. I didn't mind it honestly, although I hoped I could be reassigned at the game development department sooner or later. I was given a warm welcome by the employees. They showed a lot of enthusiasm towards me, the new employee. I didn't like the attention honestly, but I tried to hide it and showed a bright personality like I usually do. My team was working on the OS of the Wii, mainly the Wii menu and settings menu, since a quantity of main features of the Wii was already done at the time. Honestly, my work wasn't challenging. I felt like they were assigning me the easy task since I was just the intern. But that was only for the first few weeks. When I showed my abilities that I could get my work done quickly with quality, I was starting to be assigned more of the complex work. The manager of my department was named Todd. He quickly became fond of me, since I showed a lot of enthusiasm and devotion to my work. My coworkers always told me that he referred to me as the greatest intern he has had, or something like that. But I thought that was creepy, honestly. Although everything seemed to have been all butterflies and rainbows while I was working, I always somehow had that feeling that someone or something was watching me from afar. But I didn't know what or who. Some weeks later, July 10th to be specific, I was drinking some coffee in the break room, and I thought back to the game that I was trying to develop before college, Reclamation. The concept was still lingering in my head after all this time. It still seemed like a good concept for a game, and a bright idea came to my mind. So, since I knew my manager, Todd, clearly considered me as a good employee, I thought I could use my privileges from my good reputation to get my manager to do something. I had the great idea to pitch my game to him, so he could submit it to the higher-ups in the company. With excitement, I quickly finished my coffee and ran to log onto my computer to write the pitch document. But while I was writing the documents, I quickly became a bit tired. But I didn't let that distract me. I wrote the documents, printed them, and went on my way to the manager's office. When I was walking with the documents in hand, I still felt exhausted. I felt like I was about to fall asleep on the spot at any second. I thought, maybe I just need another cup of coffee. The quickest way from my work zone to the manager's office was through the server room, the server that stores every important document from Nintendo of America. I thought that if I took a shortcut from there, I could stop by a different break room right before going to the manager's office to get some coffee. The server room was big, with multiple server machines perfectly ordered, so they made multiple hallways of server machines. It could be a maze if it wasn't so organized, to be honest. There was a door to the end of the hallway, which leads to the other side of the office where my manager's room is located. I was still feeling exhausted and seriously sick from it. I was halfway through the server room, leaning myself on one of the server machines. Then, I slowly collapsed on the floor and passed out. Then I woke up. How long was I out for? But what I knew was I was extremely uncomfortable. Then, I noticed I was tied to a chair with my mouth covered and my arms tied behind the chair. I was still in the server room, but the lights were off. I could just barely see it was a server room as the lights from the server machines were still on. And then, out of the darkness, I saw a shadowy figure. This figure was holding an axe. It approached me and said, "So you're finally awake, huh?" I didn't recognize this voice, but I didn't have time to think about it, since the shadow showed himself right after. When I could finally make out who it was, I didn't recognize him either. "Greetings, Austin. My name is Henry," he said. This guy was dressed mostly in black. He had gloves on and he had noticeable messy hair. The bastard looked like he didn't take care of his appearance at all. I tried to scream out for help, but my voice didn't come out of my mouth. I was scared shitless, and besides, I had my mouth covered. "Anyways, let's get right to business." As he said that, he swung his fire axe. I closed my eyes for the impact, but he went right for my legs. I suddenly felt an indescribable amount of pain, itching down to my legs. My voice went dry. I couldn't scream from my pain. I finally opened my eyes and looked up at Henry. The bastard was looking down at me with a smug face. "You see, Austin, you went up the ranks so fast. It was unbelievable, really," he said. "I've been in this company for far longer than you, working hard, in hopes that I could be praised for my hard work around here," he continued. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I was in too much pain to want to pay attention to him. I'll admit, I got a bit envious, but who wouldn't be? But now that I've got you all to myself, my spite will be pleasing, Henry continued. I looked beside Henry, noticing that the documents of my game proposition were still on the floor. Henry then picks them up off the floor and reads them for a bit. "Reclamation, huh?" he said while looking at my documents. "Can't have this going around now, can we? Your work may be praised by the people around us, but deep down, you know it's nothing but trash, just like you." Then, Henry rips my folder in half and threw them in the nearby trash can. "Feeling stale much, huh? Wonder how that happened. Maybe your drink tasted a little off today," he said, while he had a smug look on his face. Then I looked up at him in the face. We stared at each other for a couple seconds, while I thought, did this fucker drug my coffee? What a dirty tactic. "Oh, Austin, if only I could have a little more time to play with you. You see, you weren't meant to last long here in this company. See you on the other side, old friend." Then Henry took his final swing. Then I woke up. I found myself in a void. It is hard to describe. It was not exactly a black void, but a void of nothingness. A void of that color. That colorless color that you see when you sleep. The void you encounter yourself in when transitioning from dream to dream when you sleep. It didn't have a color. It didn't have a texture. It was just nothing. I couldn't feel anything. In fact, I couldn't feel my body at all. I couldn't feel anything. It felt like none of my senses were working. There was no temperature, not a single cold or warm feeling. I didn't feel anything at all. Am I dead? I couldn't remember what had happened to me, but after some minutes I finally remembered. "That bastard!" I tried to scream, but I didn't have a voice. Right after I remembered it, voices started to come from every direction. Thousands of voices overwhelming my mind. The voices were all repeating the same sentence. "You are not done yet." They were saying that sentence in a weird language, one that I didn't recognize, but I understood. The voices were overwhelming my head. It felt like my head was about to explode. When it finally reached its climax, I screamed, then woke up again. My eyes only saw brightness for a second, but when my vision finally adjusted, I found myself in my assigned working computer, and I recognized it by my desktop background. I was standing in the Windows taskbar, where I saw some of my taskbar shortcuts, Internet Explorer, my programming software, the File Explorer, etc. I remembered again what had happened to me and sat down from the shock. I was sitting down thinking for a few minutes, remembering the horrible things that Henry did to me. But suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my hand? I stood up and got a good look at my body. My whole body was sort of transparent. I could still see it, but it was barely visible, and my whole body felt like it was going to break apart at any second. It felt unstable. I was not feeling any sort of pain per se, but it was a weird feeling throughout my body. "How am I still alive?" I said to myself, and I realized that my voice was finally back. It felt like it had been hours since I've truly said a word. Was this a miracle? Did some sort of God give me a second chance? I didn't know. Then I remembered the voices in that void. I'm not done yet. What could this mean? Then I remembered Henry's face. His smug fucking face. His facade, looking down at me. He ruined me. He ruined my world. I was livid. There was no way I could go back in time and save myself. There isn't any way I can fix all of this. And it was all because of him. I was so mad. I wanted to throw something, but I couldn't. Everything I had worked up to, everything I had achieved, everything I had, it was all gone. All fucking gone. The bastard had taken everything away from me, and now I have nothing, no one. Ah! I'd scream out. I couldn't hold in my frustrations any longer. I started banging on the ground with all I had. I couldn't punch or throw anything, so it's all I could do to let out this feeling to hit something. I'd continue to let out these enraged screams. I could feel tears of anger slowly make their way to the corner of my eyes. You had to take everything away from me. Why did you have to ruin everything for me? I'd scream out at nothing. No one could hear me. No one ever would again. I'd feel the tears start to run down, but I was too angered to put any focus into it. I'd continue to bang at the ground for a few minutes, the tear fully flowing down and now hitting the floor, as my screaming of anger had just turned into a sob of helplessness. All my anger was just overflowing with sadness. I just wanted to feel alive again. But I know that's never going to happen. I'm just going to be stuck here, forever, alone. I guess there's nothing else to do than just explore. I'd managed to slowly let out some words as I let out a deep sigh, before wiping my tears and standing up. Then I thought, if I can't do anything to fix the past, I'll make my future better instead. But what future? I'm stuck in a damn computer, I thought. But first, before I figure it out, I gotta do something about my body. It doesn't feel right, I thought. I sat down on the floor again and started thinking for a couple of minutes. I am a ghost, right? A ghost that is possessing this computer, right? I thought. Then if I am a ghost, I can possess stuff, right? I continued. Then that led to a great idea. I made my way to the File Explorer icon and clicked on it. Then, the window opened up before me. As if I was using a touchscreen, I could move it around with my hands. Then, I started looking through my files in search of the one I was looking for. But suddenly, when I was scrolling, I found a folder named Reclamation. The one folder where I stored the documents I made for the proposition of the game. I stared at it for a minute and thought, it really would have been a great game, huh? Then I reluctantly moved the folder to the recycling bin. I didn't want Henry or anyone to steal the idea. If I wasn't going to have it, no one would. After that, I continued the search for the file I was looking for. Then, I found it. The file was named mechannel_simu_ version 0.14.exe. This file was a bare-bones PC port of a prototype mechannel version that I was given some weeks ago. I was not really familiar with the mechannel, since it was already pretty close to completion when I was hired. This prototype was one of the first versions of the mechannel. This version basically only had head shapes and facial expressions. I would have gone for a later version, but I was stuck with the version that I had since I was just given the prototype. I opened the file, and the simulation started. I was led straight to the Me Creation menu. I selected my gender, head type, average eyes, and mouth. I would have also gotten hair, but they didn't have any work done in this development version. So, I had to go with a bald head for now. I also wanted a body with the Me, but the bodies were not being worked on in this prototype at the time. So I got an idea. In another window on my desktop, I opened the Paint app. It was difficult to use, but I made some basic gray and red shapes, and I saved the shapes as PNG pictures. I studied some 3D modeling at college, so I knew the basics of it. I had the idea that I could make a 3D model of a basic body. I opened a modeling program that I had installed on my desktop and went to work. I ended up making a very rough model of a body. It looked sort of robotic, but it would work for now. Then, I imported the Me head that I made previously into the model and exported the final result onto my desktop. By this point, I was surprised by how easy using the computer was. I got really used to it really quickly. But anyways, after that, I opened the exported model file in a model viewer I had installed, and got a good look at the model. If I'm a ghost or some sort of spirit, wouldn't that mean I can use this model as a body to sort of keep my soul in form? I asked myself. Then, with curiosity, I tried to walk head-on to the model I created. I suddenly had a weird urge to go right inside it. Then, as if I was a ghost, my hand went right through the Me's body. It felt like my hand was submerged in water. I pulled my hand out and chuckled. I turned around my back and walked backwards. My body phased right inside the Me, and for a moment, it felt like I was completely submerged in water. I was inside the Me. I couldn't move for a few seconds, but then, I could. My body felt brand new. My being didn't feel unstable anymore. It finally felt like I had a real body again. I got happy. It felt like I hadn't had a normal body for a long while. While I was moving around in my new body, I noticed something in the distance, far from the desktop. Far in the distance from where I was, there was a hole. A black hole. I didn't recognize it as being a part of my desktop or my wallpaper. I walked there to check it out. This hole was just about the perfect size where I could go completely in. Then, I poked my head through it. What I saw there was kind of unbelievable. It's hard to describe, but it was close to an infinite hallway, laying a totally reflective floor, with walls that were filled with multiple holes, signs hanging right above them. These signs said the names to what I would assume the holes led to. Multiple names of computers and their owners, electronic devices, Wii testing devices, and network devices. There were a lot of them. I couldn't even count them. But one name caught my eye: security system. Then, I took my head out of the hole. I stood there for a minute, trying to process what I just saw. By what I saw, I guessed that it would lead to other machines at Nintendo. But how? Why was this here? Curiosity took over me, and I decided to enter into the hole. When I was inside, I looked behind me, and there was indeed a hole that leads back to my computer. But I remembered, since I was, dead, my computer would be reset and given to a new employee, so I decided that I wouldn't go back to my assigned computer, in case something happened to me while I was inside. Then, I looked below me. The reflective floor showed me, my new body. I smiled and continued walking. I headed towards the hole that caught my attention, the security system. When I headed inside, I found myself in a small room. I looked in front of me, and there were dozens, hundreds of uncountable screens. These screens were showing security footage from all the cameras at Nintendo of America, not only the software development department. But one camera, the one at the center of the wall of screens, was only showing static. Ignoring that, I decided to head back into the hole. But then, I had the urge to look back again while I was leaving. I noticed that the center camera had stopped showing static. I walked back to see it up close. This camera was now showing footage from the server room where I was assassinated. It was still dark, but I could barely see something that shook me. I could see my real-life body, still tied to a chair, missing its head and legs, and the surrounding walls were completely splashed with blood. I could see no trace of Henry. I turned around. I wanted to vomit, but I couldn't, most likely because I was not human anymore. Then, after some self-reflection, I looked back at the screen. After some seconds, suddenly at the end of the hallway, someone opened the door. I could barely make out who it was, but I believe I saw one of my coworkers, Mike. He turned on the light, then he saw me. He immediately turned around and left the room with his hands covering his mouth. I kind of felt bad for him. I would have done the same. And finally, I turned around and left the room. I went back into the hole from where I came and entered the weird hallway with holes again. Since I didn't want to go back to my assigned computer, I decided to find a good computer where I could stay for the time being, while I figure out what to do from here on out. I started walking, and after a few minutes of walking besides countless holes and endless machines, one of them caught my eye. This hole was named desktop_Henry Morris. Henry, I thought. I was surprised to see it there. I forgot he obviously would have had a desktop here. With curiosity, I entered the hole that would lead to his desktop. When I came out of the hole, I found myself in an environment similar to where I first woke up, but it was kind of basic. Henry had close to no taskbar icons and the default Windows background, but that didn't matter. I didn't see anything that pointed to Henry using his computer at the moment, so I started walking from the hole where I came from. I found the File Explorer shortcut and proceeded to open it. The first thing that came to mind when doing that was to look for reclamation. I thought there might have been a chance that he successfully stole a concept for some reason, but I luckily didn't find anything. I sighed in relief. But then, after that, I had a bright idea. What if I can mess with his work? I started looking for the most recent documents. I couldn't find anything too weird, but I proceeded to erase the 3 most recent ones. After they got erased, I chuckled. He wanted to ruin the future I was so close to achieving. And for what? Himself? How fucking selfish. I'm gonna make him get a taste of his own medicine and ruin him. I continued looking around his documents and deleting things, but I tried to not make it too obvious. After some minutes of doing that, I decided it would be enough for today and left. I walked back to where the hole was and thought, if this hole is on the desktop, does it mean that this area is off screen? I figured out that this area would not be visible for the user using the computer, so it would be relatively safe to stay here. I knew that just messing with Henry's work for the rest of my post-life wouldn't get me anywhere. But then, I thought, what if I helped Nintendo? I was never the type to like the idea of helping people, but if I was going to be stuck at Nintendo forever, I might as well do something good with my afterlife. And so it was. For a few weeks I went around many machines, fixing errors, fixing development glitches, adding content. If anything with the Wii was wrong, I would fix it. I saw in some reports by the district manager, Todd, that some people were talking about a mysterious ghost that was helping with development, and they called me the helping vessel. I found it kind of funny that they thought of me as an urban legend. But right when I was reading that report, I thought, wait, I was assassinated at Nintendo. I had forgotten to ever check up on what had happened to my last body. Since I was already at Todd's computer, I might as well figure out while I was there. I started looking at the reports that were made some dates after I died, but I could not find anything. The only report that I could find was one that said I had quit. I was surprised. Why? Why would they lie about this? About me? Then it struck me. The Nintendo Wii, Nintendo's biggest console to date, was just a few weeks away from release. If, for some reason, word got out that someone was assassinated inside their headquarters, it would start a controversy. Then, the launch of the console would be nothing but a joke. It made so much sense, but still, I was surprised. I was surprised that they would do such a move. Then, I continued browsing through the reports made by the manager, and then, one caught my eye. This report was dated somewhere before I got hired. In short, this report said, our team has found a set of mysterious creepy rooms hidden within the files of the Me channel. We are too late in production of the Wii to remove it, but we are trying our best to find the culprits of this atrocious edition. So far, we have only found what seems to be a hospital hallway and a functional electric chair room. Again, we are sorry for any inconveniences, boss. Signed, Todd. Weird, I thought. Why would someone add something like that? I concluded. After that, I left Todd's computer and continued with my journey to help the Wii's launch. Until one day, the day before the Wii's launch, I was in the security camera room, looking around the workspace. I liked looking back at the headquarters sometimes because I sort of missed being human. Who would have thought I would miss being human, something that I hated so much? When looking at the cameras, I thought, how did Henry turn off the cameras? It was obvious he was not part of the security department, so I thought for a second, if he had any collaborators. But that thought was interrupted by something I saw in the cameras. I saw Henry. I had not seen that good-for-nothing in a while, not since he killed me. That bastard, I mumbled. I was not happy to see him. But then, I saw him take one Wii from one of the Wii piles that we had ready to ship. Then he entered one of the back rooms with it. This intrigued me with curiosity, however, as I wondered exactly what he was planning on doing. My interest got the better of me, and it was for the worst. I decided to then make my way towards the hole where I came from. Then I looked for the specific Wii Henry was using, and entered inside. I figured that at first, Henry was planning on playing around with the console to experiment with the code. I wasn't, however, going to let that slide. A taste of karma would be perfect to serve him, but the timing of this will have to be perfect. Wouldn't it be fun to mess around and spy him for all the things that he's done to me? I'd personally say it's justified. I could notice from first glance Henry, who finished setting up the console and was apparently drinking out of a bottle of beer during the process. Was he an alcoholic? Knew that son of a bitch couldn't have any redeeming qualities to him. As I was examining his actions, I realized that it would be blatantly obvious that I was watching the scene, and it would have been a stupid decision if I decided to move right to the screen, so I stayed back. However, something was off. I looked back and saw Henry, who was focused on opening up the Me channel. He pressed on the selection to create a new Me avatar. He gave the selected Me the male gender role and seemingly disturbing-like features from then on out, although they reminded me of my own body. The Me was hairless and bald, its eyes completely widened and enlarged, a cartoon-like grin, and a small nose. Afterwards, the process of the Me's appearance was done. Then Henry typed in a name. Edeled. I could feel myself raising an eyebrow at this, almost literally, but I couldn't do much. Wasn't that delete backwards? Quite an odd choice if I say so myself, and it honestly weirded me out. I had a really off-putting feeling, and I thought that this was enough. I should probably get out of here before he notices me. I was midway through the process of getting out of there until I heard something. I've always wanted to be a Me. That was coming from Henry? What the hell was he talking about? Is he that drunk? I wanted to see if he was going to do something stupid, so I stayed for a couple more seconds. But then, he looked at his right and stood up. I finally decided that it was enough and left. While I was halfway back into the hole from where I came from, I suddenly got electrocuted. I felt the electricity go completely through my body. It felt like my whole body was on fire. I felt myself moving and shaking in pain, and that went on for a couple of seconds. It all felt like my soul was leaving my body. But, while I was being severely electrocuted, something entered my non-existent ears. I heard Henry screaming. Then, the shock finally stopped. I fell on the floor and felt very tired. But only one thought came to my mind. Was he also being electrocuted? Then, finally, I passed out.